トビデオ
You know what unites the worlds of Japanese anime and Japanese video games? A love of cute girls. From the time doujin culture and PC gaming emerged from similar cultural spheres, nerds have always wanted to create interactive media where, whatever the conceit, it involved a cute anime girl or girls. These were usually visual novels with the occasional RPG thrown in for good measure. But then the 90s came around and introduced the world to a new genre that involved two people punching and kicking each other until one came out on top. Fighting games involving a primarily female cast emerged in the middle of the fighting game craze of the 90s, and it's not hard to see why, since even the most rudimentary fighting game required a cast of 6 or more characters. That meant creating a game with 6 or more anime girls, and you, the player, get to control one of those girls. Be that girl as you launch a burn knuckle at the other fighter who is also a cute anime girl. And while some of these titles could fall into the realm of what we in the business call kusoge, they have been an enduring part of the fighting game scene for decades, and have been a rich source for many a cult classic. From official titles like Asuka 120% and Arcana Hearts, to popular fan games like Touhou Hisoten Toko. The thing is though, is that these games are hyper niche. They'll be popular in some circles, but their reliance on fan service and moe tropes usually means they'll be constricted to certain strains of otaku. A lot of these titles don't even make it out of Japan. Even in their home country, they wouldn't be seen as big franchises worthy of even an anime adaptation. But that didn't stop one scrappy fighting game series in its quest for legitimacy.
Variable Geo, the martial arts tournament fought to determine the toughest waitress in the world. The winner receives $10 million and premium real estate in the city of her choice. Goddesses, descend on the field of battle.
To reiterate what Mr. Narrator said, the VG tournament is an annual martial arts tournament where Japan's strongest women compete in bouts of pugilism to determine which goddess is the queen of the ring. The hook of this tournament, though, is that it is sponsored by several of Japan's finest family restaurants. So, for the ladies to enter the tournament proper as a means to show off their skill, they have to work as waitresses in the sponsored restaurants and fight in their waitress uniform. The winner of the tournament will not only be rewarded with the title of Virgin Goddess, but also a hefty cash prize of 10 billion yen and prime real estate gifted to her sponsor. But whenever a waitress is defeated, she must bear her shame to the world. Or in the words of Tommy Lee, fame, fortune, and pride are all on the line in the VG tournament, and it's not for the weak of heart. But there's always a crop of daring women willing to step up and prove their strength in the ring. One of these women, Yuka Takeuchi, is here not for money or recognition, but to further her own training, as well as her belief that you can only know a person once you face them face to face and fist to fist in the ring.
戦うことって、剣と剣を合わせることって、何ごちゃごちゃ言うてんねん。友と心を通わせ合った剣は素晴らしいものなのに。
Yuka shares the strongest connection with her friend and dojo rival, Satome Yajima. Satome has not entered the VG tournament officially, but may be tempted to do so after her sickly brother's condition takes a turn for the worst, and the only cure is an expensive operation. Coincidentally, a mysterious stranger dressed in black has taken an interest in both her and Yuka's potential as fighters. His name is Damien, and whatever plans he has in store for these girls, it probably has something to do with his connection to the Jahana Corporation, the main sponsor and organizer of the VG tournament, and their head CEO, Reimi Jahana, who was also last year's tournament winner. (1997's Variable Geo is an anime that came in late, both as part of the fighting game craze and the OVA era. Those were on a steep decline by the time 97 rolled around. Knowing that, in conjunction with a premise that does otaku zero favors in trying to purge the idea of them as leering perverts, you could assume we got ourselves one for the trash pile. In reality, the Variable Geo OVA is quite solid, especially in terms of fighting game adaptations, which, as history has taught us, have been, let's say, a grab bag of quality.
Now you die!
It's no masterpiece, mind you, but if I have to rank every single fighting game adaptation I've had to watch for this show, Variable Geo ranks in the upper tiers. The people behind this were trying to make something good. They put their nose to the grindstone and tried to craft a fighting game adaptation that could be seen as more than just cheap, trashy tie-in material. As we'll soon see of the game's origins, it's probably because they had to work harder to be seen as a valid franchise compared to its peers. Call the waitress over, it's time for another helping of analysis and fists. The action starts for Variable Geo right now. It's 1993, the height of the fighting game craze, with almost every games company jumping on the bandwagon. These battles for gamers' attention were fought mostly in arcades, but with improving processing power of home hardware, the genre soon found its way into the home through consoles and personal computers. However, at this time, 2D fighters developed directly for home machines were incredibly rare. It was still the Wild West for fighting games though, and a lot of companies were taking big chances with equally big risks.
Alright, it's always great to see guys in good shape.
This environment was ripe for the Japanese software company Technical Group Laboratory to burst into the kitchen and shout, "What if we made an eroge fighting game?" On July 19th, through TGL's brand spanking new Integram subsidiary, Giga, Variable Geo dropped for the PC-98 computers. The conceit is exactly how I described it above. A yearly tournament between combat waitresses, sponsored by family restaurants across Japan, began, and only one waitress can come out on top. There were exactly 6 waitresses in the fighting game roster: Yuga Takeuchi, our Ryu of the game; Chiho Masuda, a kunoichi waitress part of an ancient ninja clan; Manami Kusunoke, the token cutie pie with a catgirl theme; Jun Kubota, the muscular grappler waitress; Kaori Yanase, the Megane waitress who derives her power from data collection; and Reimi Jahana, the reigning champion and final boss. Variable Geo was as rudimentary as a fighter could get. Thanks to PC-98's official controller only having 2 action buttons, the characters could only do basic kick and punch attacks. Special moves were doable, but it's here where you can see that Giga was looking over Street Fighter II's shoulder when designing this game. While the game looked nice for its format, owing to strong sprite work and the processing power of the PC-98, it was a pretty crummy fighting game all things considered. The PC-98 was notorious for having unresponsive controls, so that made it the ideal platform for visual novels and RPGs. A fighting game where responsive controls are the first, second, and third priority in development was always gonna suffer here. Even looking at the footage, you can tell the controls feel stiffer than a 2x4. It made special moves a pain to pull off, and combos nigh impossible to set up. Not helped that testimony said that the enemy AI was cheap enough to give SNK bosses a run for their money. The fighting game aspect was not the main selling point of Variable Geo though. I said the conceit is exactly like how I described it at the beginning, and I mean everything. This is an eroge game, so when you beat an opponent, you are treated to some nice artwork of her getting naked for all the cameras, and even escalating to some more hardcore scenes I can't show on here. It was this aspect that is probably why Variable Geo sold well enough to become a franchise. Despite its success with the perverts of PC gaming, TGL clearly thought Variable Geo had a future outside of that audience. So, when the game got ported to the Neo Geo, SNES, PlayStation, and Saturn, TGL removed the H scenes and retooled the game to feel more like a traditional arcade fighter with dedicated meters and a desperation attack gimmick. They also added 3 more characters to the roster: Ayako Yuki, the rave club waitress who specializes in dance battling; Irina Goldsmith, the toughest nails American street fighter in the Playboy Bunny outfit; and Satome Yajima, the kin to Yuga's Ryu. But you can tell that the higher-ups behind Variable Geo had higher ambitions for it than it just being a sexy fighting game. It needed a seal of authenticity to make it more than its tawdry PC-98 origins. So, in the mid to late 90s, as development on a sequel to the Variable Geo console port got underway, TGL commissioned an anime. The producers behind the Variable Geo anime was the company KSS Inc. They were known for producing risque anime titles or anime titles that had risque origins. Either way, they were the perfect fit for Variable Geo. Animation services would be provided by then newcomer Chaos Project, this being their first project where they were the main animation studio. With those names behind the production, combined with the era of OVAs going out of style, one could expect a cheapo fist and tits anime designed to wring dollars out of the otaku market. Luckily for us, the production of the OVA is elevated wholeheartedly by the man in the director's chair, Toru Yoshida. Yoshida is a talented animator and mecha designer who got his big break with his incredible work on the Armor Trooper Votoms anime. From that point, right up to today, he can pop up anywhere to deliver the Sakuga goods. But a special talent he really has is showing up to give trashy, fanservice anime some amazing sparkle with his animation skills. We've talked about a few of them. That skill set is in full throttle with Variable Geo. The anime's selling point is the fights as well as the fan service, so he gives a lot of love on that front. From first bell, we get a great fight between Yuka and Jun that emphasizes both their speed and strength. Even when their punches do not connect with each other, you can feel the power behind those punches of theirs. The fights even play well with the fan service, such as the match between Ayako and Satomi. Through Yoshida's boarding, the animators do an excellent job crafting Ayako's swift, kinetic dance fighting with her tearing off Satomi's clothes as if they were tissue paper. It's exhilarating as it is erotic.
Yuko.
The animation Yoshida and his team employ really goes a long way in selling you on the patently absurd premise, because the fights give special attention to the fact that these girls are not just waitresses forced to fight, but genuine martial artists who wear waitress uniforms as their gis. We also have to thank character designer the late Takahiro Kimura for that as well. Kimura, who designed the original cast for the game, was a master of defining the 90s style of moe. He especially knows how to make the waitress outfits look attractive, since that was the fetish outfit of choice before the maids took over. Yuka's breast straining against the fabric of her Hannah Miller blouse is a good detail at the beginning to let you know what one of the anime's priorities are. But Kimura also employs a lot of details to their designs that tell you a lot about the characters, like how Yuka's waitress outfit is accessorized with foot and hand guards to show that she's a dedicated martial artist, or how Irina has a big lighter shoved between her breasts to show that she's from the mean streets. Details like those show the characters as characters, and not just walking moe and fighting game tropes. Both men's drawings are paramount to making Variable Geo more than the sum of its parts, and yet they can only do so much. While Yoshida does try to dress it up with some inspired boarding of his, you can tell that the anime is stretching the pennies increasingly as it goes on. Fight scenes get shorter with most of the action happening off screen, and some of the drawings of the characters were obviously finalized while Yoshida was looking elsewhere. Voice acting is fine in Japanese with great performances from KYOTO no Mitsuishi and Yuriko Yamaguchi.
僕に見せてあげる。僕の気を、僕の震える剣を。私のところに来るのは戦って勝ち抜いた人だけ。でもただでは返さない。
English dub, on the other hand, is another story. This is clearly a product ADV got in a package deal, so they did not enlist their A team or even their B team to act on this. A lot of lines being read and not said in this anime.
You're not that bad. This'll be more fun than I thought.
Really not a good sign that the only voice I recognize in this is perennial understudy Larissa Wolcott.
I like your chest. It's squishy and soft. Boing, boing, boing.
I theorized at the beginning that this anime was TLG's attempt to attain legitimacy for the Variable Geo franchise. And the reason why I made this inference is because of my big takeaway from this OVA. Despite all the panty shots, breast physics, and plot premise centered around a martial arts tournament catering to waitress fetishists, this anime takes itself very seriously. Don't get me wrong, it's not completely serious. The fight scenes do provide some moments of levity, and Manami plays her role well as the mid-series comic relief with a love of breasts.
めっちゃすごいや け姉ちゃんの胸
But for most of the runtime, this is a serious martial arts thriller about heated rivalries and vast corporate conspiracies. The tournament is treated in-universe as a big deal, with it being one of the most popular events in Japan that's only growing with international broadcasts making it as far as the Middle East. Even the Prime Minister drops everything to watch the latest fight. And when the girls have to get naked, it's genuinely given a lot of gravitas, a humiliating ritual that a fighter must endure to save face in defeat.
地獄を乗り越えてこそ VG の勝者たり得る。しかし、いつまで経っても慣れないものですね。
The weightiness of the writing extends to the characters, from Kaori desperate to fight Raimi to make up for her own humiliating defeat last year, to Irina using the prejudice she experienced as an American child in Japan as fuel for her anger to make herself stronger.
うちの剣は怒りの剣や。せやからうちは最強だよ
The emotional crux of the narrative is the rivalry between Yuka and Satami. Satami has a noble goal in entering the tournament to procure a life-saving operation for her brother Daisuke, but what's actually keeping her going and helping her tap into her latent powers more potently is her drive to surpass Yuka in combat. Satami was always the strongest at the dojo where she trained until the day Yuka arrived. After that, an insurmountable wall got put in her way, and Yuka's desire to always be getting stronger only makes that wall grow. Because she never caught on to that envy and desire whenever they sparred, it means that Yuka's belief that you can find a person's true self through facing them in combat is flawed. But even then, it's also the only way Yuka can save Satami.
わからないなら分かり合えるまで剣を合わせればいい。今の僕にはそれしかできないんだから、サトミ。僕たちまだつながってるね。
And the corporate conspiracy thriller aspect of the anime is a good engine for driving the plot forward on a road with lots of twists and turns. At the beginning, you would assume that Raimi is the main villain, considering her final boss role in the games, her position as Jahana CEO, and her habit of making flowery monologues to the nearest person.
あなた、私の好きな言葉分かって。それは平等よ。私は勝者だけでなく、敗者にも見せ場を用意してあげたい。さあ、踊りなさい。
But it's established early on that she's in a lot of conflict with Damien over entering Satami in the tournament. And midway through the second episode, it's clear that she is merely a powerful businesswoman who just wants to spend her time attending business meetings and getting it on with her Drew Pickles boy toy outside the ring. The real villain of this here story is Damien, which, yeah, what was your first clue? While initially coming off as a talent scout for Satami, it's evident that he has ulterior motives for her. He's trying to mold Satami into the strongest fighter by any means necessary, first by browbeating her using her backstory, then by making some slight enhancements to her body that not only strengthen her, but allow Damien to take over when she resists, to finally hooking her up to a hellish machine that puts her into full New 13 mode. And the purpose of all this? Damien is actually the head of the Jahana Group's clandestine science department, and their main goal is to resurrect the spirit of the old CEO and Raimi's abusive mother, Miranda. Also, they can give her a new body that is more powerful than her old one. It's an insane plotline and one that kept me wrapped at attention for the full runtime. But Variable Geo still has some issues in the story department that also plagues a lot of its peers. While I'm certainly not against the fan service, that focus does go into some weird tonal issues. Variable Geo's plot goes into some really dark places full of abuse and dubious consent, so it's always a little eyebrow raising when we get scenes like these two back to back.
まだ眠ってもらっちゃ困るのよ。クライマックスがまだ終わってないんだから。
喧嘩に卑怯もクソもないってね。
And the plotline where Damien is also a fighter, but practically a feral beast due to his nature as the failed first body for Miranda, weighs down the narrative more often than not. All it ends up being is an excuse to give Yuka more fight scenes without her having to face Satami too soon, and the tragic gravitas of his death scene hits about as hard as a wet feather with how quickly it tries to garner sympathy for him. But I think the biggest issue plot-wise is that some of the subplots go absolutely nowhere. There's a lot of setup for the unnamed ninja clan that is so far up the chain of command the Prime Minister answers to them, but they don't really matter to the overall plot, which is very egregious considering they had to do a complete 180 on Shiho's entire character, turning her from a freedom-seeking rebel to a loyal shinobi, also they could get them in there. There's also this old man character who pops in and out of the story, and his only role is to give Yuka some information on Damien and deconstruct and rebuild her philosophy on knowing people through fighting. But near the end, he and his young girl companion steal an unknown MacGuffin from one of the scientists and destroy the arena in their escape.
時代は変わったのじゃ。
Who are these people? What are they here for? Don't save this loose end for a Ghost sequel, tell us now! Unfortunately, we will never get the answers. While the anime did lead into Advanced Variable Geo 2, the game people considered the best both graphics and gameplay wise, that was it for VG as a fighting game franchise. TGL decided to retreat back to their niche and reboot Variable Geo as a series of hentai visual novels. It did lead to a kinda pseudo-sequel to this anime in 2004, but since the last official Variable Geo game came out in 2005, it's safe to call this series dead, especially now that TGL closed Giga in 2023. A real bummer because the Variable Geo anime showed that, even outside the world of hentai, this franchise had some juice. The story is flawed in trying to juggle multiple concepts and tones, but what it does get right is enough to grab your attention. And with the excellent animation and character designs, Variable Geo becomes a delicious bit of anime junk food. Even if you don't dig the fan service, it's so casually presented that it fades into the background, and the fighting and story become more of a focus, a la Kill la Kill. Variable Geo might not be the most delectable feast, but it's the perfect fighting game anime snack to munch. And that's more than what I can say about some of the bad meals I've covered on this show.
No!
Check, please.
Thank you all for watching. If you like this video or want to support this channel, please donate to my Patreon. Each dollar can give you early access to my videos as they come out, as well as keep the channel running a bit more smoothly. You can also subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, or just like this video. Either way, you'll be helping me out. That's all for now. See you for the next round of tapes.